It's Tuesday the 22nd of December. Will Pochettino be unwrapping a brand new Berahino? Will Spurs be able to stay in the top four? And will the new stadium take Spurs to another level? We'll try to answer all of that and more. This is your e-Spurs podcast.
Come on, you Spurs! Come on, you Spurs! Come on, you Spurs! Come on, you Spurs! Tottenham, no one can stop them.
Welcome to the podcast, guys. Once again, a non-stop 7 days for THFC. We're here to discuss everything that's happened in the past 7 days. And don't forget, we want you guys out there to get involved in the show. So if you like what you hear tonight, there's loads of ways to get in touch and stay in touch with all things e-Spurs. You can, of course, follow us on Twitter at e_Spurs, on Facebook, which is / e-Spurs page. And new for this season, you can follow us on Google+, YouTube, Instagram, Pinterest, the lot. For all of the e-Spurs links, go to the website. It's www.espurs.blogspot.co.uk. Tonight we'll be reviewing the 2-0 win over our feeder club, Southampton, on Saturday, getting our lads' thoughts on the decision to approve the planning application of the new stadium last week. We'll be continuing our brand new talking point feature, and if that wasn't enough, we'll also be reviewing the best and the worst of 2015. We'll also be, if we can fit it in tonight for you, previewing the Boxing Day clash against the Canaries. So loads and loads to get our teeth into tonight, guys. As always, a show jam-packed full of Spurs stuff. But without further ado, let's introduce the panel of Spurs fans who make up the e-Spurs team. It's our very own three wise men. It's Jason, John and Ricky. How you doing, fellas?
Hello, mate. All good? You all right?
Very good, mate. Very good.
Very well, thanks, Jace. Very well.
Good stuff. Good to have you back, lads, as always. And as I say, loads to talk about tonight and get our teeth into. First up, not Spurs related, but I think we should mention a mention for Jimmy Hill, who sadly passed away last week. Of course, hugely important in the English game. Loads of innovations that Jimmy brought into the game, and I'm sure I and many others out there, the e-Spurs team, grew up watching Jimmy on Match of the Day. So sad to see the news about Jimmy Hill in the week. Let's move on to the Southampton game, lads. 2-0 win. Despite that, it started off pretty scrappy, and it looked as if we were struggling at first. Let's go to Ricky on this one first up, mate. A 2-0 win, but it wasn't as easy as it might appear, was it?
No, it wasn't indeed, Andy. I have to be honest and say, I don't think we started the game particularly well. First 20 minutes, we looked ever so cagey. Couldn't really get out of our own half, if I'm being brutally honest. And Lloris kept us in it with a couple of decent saves very early on. I think it was one of those games where we just grew into, because we got the 2 goals in quick succession, it settled us down and very much we saw out the game. But it was a very, very important result. I think after last week's defeat to Newcastle, a lot of people were going to be questioning what Spurs were going to turn up against Southampton, because naturally Spurs, we were all excited going into that Newcastle game, hoping we could continue the run. It was a surprising defeat. Everybody was trying to see how we were going to bounce back, and we bounced back well, and it's left us in the top 4. And let's hope we can sustain a run, and hopefully we can go on a winning run now, because I think that's the question. We've had a lot of draws previously. It's now about turning the draws into wins, and let's hope Southampton is the kickstart to that.
Absolutely, well said. And John, I guess, as I say, we didn't play brilliantly on Saturday, and yet we still won. Is that a mark, do you think, of how much we've improved? The fact that we can go through games like this and not play at our best, but still get the 3 points?
Yeah, definitely. I would say that's been we've done that so many times, especially since Pochettino's been there, in my opinion. We have had games like that, and I think Saturday was another one of those. And as we said before, after a defeat, it would be interesting to see the reaction. And they did have to dig deep, like Ricky said. It weren't the best opening to the game, but 2 goals in quick succession really killed them off. And I thought second half, apart from that one worldie that Hugo pulled off right at the end, I weren't too worried ever in the second half. So it was a good performance.
It was a fighting performance, wasn't it? And Jace, we've got obviously, our talisman up front, Harry Kane, seems to be coming back into some form, doesn't he? 10 goals in 10 games now, and he's 47th in 100. So it's good to have Harry Kane back in scoring form.
Yeah, and he took his goal brilliantly, didn't he? It was an awful foul on Dele Alli, and perhaps on another day you'd have thought that was more than a yellow as well. An awful foul, but the way Kane went through, and then Van Dijk looked like a Sunday morning pub player, didn't he? You thought, that's not a Premier League tackle. That nobody does that. If you're not gonna get the ball, you got to at least try and take the man down or something, haven't you? But But once he'd gone past him, he looked like he gave the keeper the eyes, and he sent him one way and put it in the other corner. It was a really composed, quality finish.
Yeah, absolutely. Great to have him back. Of course, there was a few changes in there. Ben Davies came in for Danny Rose. Rick, how do you think Davies did?
I think he done exceptionally well. I think the issue, the nicety Pochettino has is that with Davies, not many squads have it where you can rotate at, fullback and bring in the quality of Davies, who is, for me, arguably, he's shown himself to be a very, very decent replacement for Rose. I think the question is, and I've seen a lot of this on social media over that weekend when we did win the game, a lot of people were bringing up the fact that Vertonghen seems to play better when Davies is there. And it might just be a case where Rose, when he does play, Rose does seem to obviously assert himself going a lot more forward, and then that leaves Vertonghen exposed. And I think what you saw on Saturday, and I made a reference to it, is that Vertonghen had one of his best performances for Spurs, I thought, of the season. I thought he played ever so well, and he was back to his best, because I criticised him the week before against Newcastle, where I said he opened his body up too much to allow the striker onto his favourite foot to score. I thought Vertonghen was very, very much in control on Saturday, and that may have been because Davies was there, but, Davies for me has shown when he has come in, he's played very, very well. He got the assist the week before in the Europa League against Monaco, against Monaco. So he's very much a capable replacement for Rose. But we've got that luxury now where we can have that bit of strength in depth in defence, where we've got that option to switch. And long may that continue.
It's great, isn't it, to have that strength in depth, as you say. You've sort of got two players per position, starting to get that, especially on the bench. I noticed, more and more now, our bench is starting to look stronger, if you like. And of course, John, Dembele was back on Saturday. Is Dembele starting to become one of the most important players in the team now for you?
Yeah, without a doubt. He's really stepped up, and I think he's one of them sort of late bloomer type players where he sort of meandered through a lot of his career so far, but he's really, at 28 I think he is now, he's really showing his worth. And it just goes to show the performance against Newcastle compared to Saturday, although it wasn't amazing on Saturday, he was a big part in it, and he helped us control the midfield, and he kept Wanyama quiet, and maybe that was a few quid well saved by keep putting Dyer in that position and not buying Wanyama, because Dembele's really stepped up, and he looked class on Saturday.
Yeah, he's just got so much strength, isn't he, on the ball? It's so hard to get him off the ball once he's got it, and drifts past players.
Well, there were so many times. They highlighted it on Match of the Day as well, which pleased me, because you noticed watching the game how many times he shook a player off, and he took a few whacks, and he was fouled quite a lot, and he done really well. He never lost the ball at all, I don't think.
Sorry, John, he gets criticised, doesn't he, for his lack of goals, but to me, it's not that important, is it, when you think there's some of the great midfielders we've had, that Premier League great midfielders, if you like, who don't necessarily chip in with a lot of goals, but they're so important in the position they play.
Well, I think with Ali playing in front of him as he did, although they did change it during the game, with Ali playing in front of him and the fact that he did score, I always go back to Modric. Modric's goals per game ratio was awful, but he had Van der Vaart playing just in front of him, who was scoring double figures every season, and a lot of the time it was coming through the ingenuity and the creativeness of Modric. And if Dembele can be, I always call him like the pre-assist. That's what Modric used to do for us. He'd be the one that played the ball, which allowed the assist to be made. So he don't always have to be getting an assist or scoring a goal to have an impact on the game, and I think that's exactly what happened on Saturday.
Yeah, Lev, absolutely brilliant performance from him. And you notice the difference. As soon as he's back in that team, everything seems to flow a lot more. Everything seems to gel a lot more when he's there. He just holds that midfield together, I think. A lot
of the players seem to sort of look for him on Saturday, if you know what I mean. And I think the fact that he was there, he was very much a calming influence. And as I said, he made Wanyama not look great, so it's all good. And I think maybe that was what we were missing a little bit, where we had Tom Carroll playing there against Newcastle. He hasn't got the presence physically, same as Dembele does, and I think we saw the difference in the control that the midfield had in both of them games really was chalk and cheese. Yeah, absolutely. Jace, the win on Saturday and Man United capitulating again at Old Trafford means we're now in the top four. Dare we dream? Let's just see how we do between over the next couple of games, because the week before we had a chance to go in the top four, we messed it up. This time we picked it off. So we got two tough games. All this business of
we got easy runs, and you think, okay, we got Norwich and Norwich next. They go to Old Trafford and win. Then you get Watford, and they were outstanding against Liverpool the other day. And those two boys up front, they'll give us problems. So let's just. I'm very much at that age now where you just think, concentrate on the next game and just worry about that one first.
Yeah, very sensible, I think. You sort of get burnt a few times as a Spurs fan, don't you? And you learn very quickly not to get your hopes up, although, it's still nice to dream, I guess. And when you see the results from the likes of Liverpool at the weekend, I don't think there's a league like it. It's crazy some of the results that go on in there. Rick, if you were to nail your colours to the mast right here and now, would you see Spurs outpacing the likes of Liverpool and, let's say, Leicester for a top 4 place, or are we just to miss out?
It's so hard, Andy, to judge it, because I've said for weeks, and I keep saying Leicester will slip up, and there they are. Let's be honest, they're 9 points clear of us now, and Leicester, like us, we've only lost a couple of games, so can we see them losing 3 games? Is that the way they're playing? Having said that, their upcoming fixtures look very, very tough on paper. But, I mean, you've got to say, if they come through Christmas and New Year and are still in relatively the same position in terms of being as far clear as what they are of us, then you'd have to say it's going to be a real battle. And I've said before, it all really comes down to, for me, where we are after Christmas and New Year in terms of the window. I think the window is very, very important. And I know we're going to probably come on to it later on, but I think this is where Spurs we're going to see Levy's ambitions and, what he wants to do this season. Does he want to go for it? Because like you've just alluded to there, the lads have alluded to, this league is so open. It really is, first, second, third, fourth. It's anyone's there for the taking. You look at it now, Liverpool, although Klopp has come in, you're not going to be guaranteed instant success there. He's going to need time to build a team. Man United, who knows what's going to go on with Van Gaal at the moment, if he's staying, if he's going to be let go. But this is the worst Man United side in years. Arsenal, they've been quite consistent. You'd say they're always finishing the top 4. City, without company at the back, they look very, very ordinary. If a team can put a run together, like Leicester can do, the top 4 is anyone's. And I keep saying Spurs shouldn't be focused on 4th. We should be looking 3rd. And then the worst case scenario, then look for 4th. But I think a lot of it will come down to the January window. If we are in a good position come January and we can go and invest in a second striker, because we've seen the issue this season, 8 draws. We need to turn the draws into wins, and the January window for me is going to play a vital part in our challenge for a top 4 position. If we can go and get that striker we need, there's no chance why we can't have a say.
Well, you mentioned we need to get a striker there. John, at the top of the show, we mentioned Berahino. We've spoken about him on the show a few times. Personally, I still need a bit of convincing that he's to be the guy. I mean, he hasn't played this season. He's only scored a few goals. Going to be rusty coming in anyway. Sell him to me. Why is he the man to bring in this window?
Well, I'm not convinced he is, but I think because obviously we were after him, and we did offer a lot of money for him. Maybe he's obviously the one that Pochettino wants or wanted. I don't know about now. I know we've been linked with Batshuayi, the Belgian striker that plays for Marseille. He looks a bit of a handful. He's a similar sort of player to Berahino, but a bit more physical.
And arguably, John, he'd be more of a Pochettino Mitchell type signing, wouldn't he?
I think so. Yeah, one of them plucked from relative not obscurity. He obviously plays for Marseille. They're a good side, but yeah, one that he's not world renowned. Although Berahino's not either, but I think like Ricky said, this transfer window, I would imagine Leicester won't have tens of millions of pounds to splash, whereas the clubs around them probably would have deeper pockets than them. So we'll see, and we just need to capitalise now, especially with Clinton being out for a month or more after having a knee operation. So yeah, I mean, I can't really sell Berahino to you at all, mate. Going back to your question, I think he's completed 90 minutes in the league once since all season. He's got 3 goals. So, if we're going back in for a player that can't get into West Brom's first team, maybe, obviously he's not being utilised in the same way under Tony Pulis, is he? Let's be honest, he's not 6'8", is he? So that's probably why he's not playing. But yeah, I think if we do go back in for him, it just needs to be a sensible amount of money, and I can see the transfer fee might shrink because of his lack of playing time and his obvious lack of importance, really, to West Brom, considering they turned down 20 odd million in the summer. So we'll see. I mean, I personally think he'd be a good signing in as much as he's played with Harry before and he's young and he's English and all the rest of it. But I wouldn't be surprised if Batshuayi is the one we go for in the end.
Yeah, Jace, we mentioned, we've spoken about this, haven't we? Berahino's been probably unlucky there in that Tony Pulis has pretty much made up his mind he doesn't want him. That seems to be the way it's working out there, and that a deal will probably be struck between Spurs and West Brom, bearing in mind what happened. Is he the right man to come in for you?
Well, I think, as John just said, the fact that I think that's the one that Pochettino wants. To my mind, I wouldn't necessarily go and buy him, but I think Pochettino's earned the right to be able to say to Daniel Levy, look, that's the one I want. Please, back me on this one. I think the other thing with the Marseille lad is that it's the European Championships coming up in the summer, and if you're playing regularly and scoring goals in a settled side, you're unlikely to want to push for a move in the January window, especially to another league, and think, well, I might go to Tottenham, but Kane's there, so maybe I'll play 6 or 7 games between now and the Euros. So I think, Berahino is also the most gettable one that's been linked with us. I think, the Marseille lad and one or two of the other ones that we've been linked with are all types of deals you do in a summer rather than in the January window. And I still believe the fact that West Brom of themselves have said we need to sell before we can buy, I'm convinced that the deal will happen, and I actually think it will happen quite early in January as well.
Yeah, it certainly needs to, doesn't it? I'm still holding out hope that Spurs have got a clause in the contract for James Rodriguez to join if it doesn't work out for him at the Bernabeu. I hear that he's unsettled, so let's get him in. You never know. It'd be nice.
There's always Leandro Damiao, isn't there? We can always turn to.
Have we been there before with that one?
Yeah, it could be.
Wouldn't surprise you, would it? That's the funny thing about it. If he did go back for him, but
well, maybe we'll go back in for Morientes or Rivaldo. Right.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I don't think January's the time, is it really, to be buying and selling? Maybe we do need to strengthen in that area, but I've just got a feeling that as the first Berahino deal didn't work out, and that we've got Son in there, albeit he's not, setting the world alight yet. I still got a feeling that we might hang on and wait till the summer and get somebody who's a little bit more, let's say, exciting in there.
Or maybe, sorry to jump in, Andy, maybe a key to the Berahino deal may be the fact that he's not cup tied for Europe, and if we get him early, like Jay said, he could play in the FA Cup as well. So he put like comparing him to the guy at Marseille, he would get more games, I suppose, in as much as there are going to be the cup games, hopefully a long run in both, and he's also, as we've mentioned before when we spoke about him, he's not just a centre forward. He can play behind the striker or wide, so he probably would get more game time than an out and out centre forward. So yeah, I think maybe actually I'm changing my mind now. Andy, let's do it.
Yeah, I tell you what, it's gonna. Transfer windows are always strange times, aren't they? Especially if you're a Spurs fan, because you're always sort of thinking down to deadline day. But let's hope, as Jay said, that we get it done early. And if Berahino comes in and make a great point there. He's not cup tied. He's maybe in if we reverse things, he's fresh. He's going to be ready, and let's hope we can get him fit as soon as possible. And if he comes in and he can start banging in the goals, because we need somebody to take that pressure off Harry Kane, don't we? And we need a dedicated striker. Son, it's great to have him in there. Lamela, Eriksson, but we need somebody who's a dedicated striker up there alongside Kane, I think. I think
also his lack of playing time may well mean that he comes in really hungry.
Yeah.
He hasn't played and he's desperate to show what he's worth. And, he himself may still have one eye on the Euros and think, he'd be a wild card at the moment, but you think if he could score 8-10 goals, he's a player that might sneak in at the last minute if there was one or two knocks to people as well.
Yeah, it's a great shout. It's an incentive, isn't it, if nothing else, for him to come in and start scoring. And I'm sure, you don't lose quality overnight, do you? And we saw a couple of seasons ago from him, his stock was starting to rise, shall we say, and let's hope he can regain that. It just worries me a little bit, the dip he's had in the last year or so. He hasn't had a fair crack of the whip under Pulis in the last 6 months, but let's hope Pochettino can get that back for him. We shall see.
Yeah, I was about to say, the only thing I was going to say on the Berahino front is that we have to remember, like you've just said with Pulis, I think he was under the assumption that the player was going to go. I think Pulis was ready to allow the player to go, which is why he brought Rondon in, because they made Rondon, I think he was the club record signing, and they bought him. I mean, Pulis bought him, I think, with the perspective that Berahino wasn't going to be around. You know, Pulis likes to play up front with a big striker. He wants a 5 in the middle, 1 up top. I think it's not so much necessarily that Berahino's form has dropped. I just think that he's not favoured in the way Pulis wants to play. And I kind of think personally as well, Pulis is making a point also to Peace that I didn't actually want the player to stay. And I remember straight after the window closed, Pulis turned around and said, this isn't the best situation for me. It's not the best situation for the player. Also, kind of more reinforcing the fact that he was accepting the player wanted to go. So, like the boys have echoed, I just do hope when January comes along that it can be done early, because we mustn't forget as well, NG being injured now, as much as NG was on the fringes of the team, that's still another attacking threat that we've lost. And losing Kane as well, if we was to, God forbid, to injury, and you look at Son, who we've all agreed isn't a natural number 9, then it is imperative that we go and get another striker in January. Absolutely imperative.
Absolutely. It's going to be, I mean, as I say, January isn't the best time, is it, to bring in players? But if you're going to make a real go of the Europa League, as we hope they are this season, you're going to need another striker, no doubt about it in my mind. Because if Kane takes a knock, you've got no one in there to replace him, then you're stuffed, aren't you? So let's hope they go and get someone. If it's Berahino, fair play. Let's support him and hope he does the business. Just to finish up on Saturday, lads. A few stats from Saturday. Dele Alli's scored now or assisted 4 goals in his past 4 league matches, 2 goals, 2 assists. So another sign of his progress, outstanding. And also, it was a little stat here for you. It's the first time that Southampton have failed to score in a home game against Spurs for the first time since 1999. So 16 years. First time Southampton have failed to score against Spurs in a game at St Mary's, should I say. So another sign that our defence, had a great game. They went through that sticky patch, didn't they, that we mentioned on the show. But they looked pretty... I mean, there were a few hairy moments on Saturday, but all in all, I think, they stood up to the challenge well. And let's hope it continues. Lads, we've got to move on because so much to pack into the show tonight. And another moment from the past 7 days that occurred was the long-awaited, much-awaited decision on the new stadium. It took a 7-hour council meeting, which Andy was sat in front of his laptop for almost falling asleep, just about stayed awake for the duration. And all in all, it was a fairly interesting event. I mean, you had the people there for it, you had the people there against it, so everyone was given a fair crack of the whip to speak, which is, of course, right. Some really good points, I think, were made by both sides as well as to why the stadium should go ahead, why it maybe shouldn't. And then, obviously, the vote took place, and we were given our planning permission by 8-2 votes. I believe it's still in the hands of the mayor to approve this week, and then I believe that's the final hurdle cleared. Jace, with the planning permission, fingers crossed, now through for the new stadium, it looks as if we might be ready to start the development works. In terms of Spurs as a club in the future, how vital is this stadium, the scheme, not just to the football club, but to the area of Tottenham? Well,
I think, it's such a poor, deprived part of London, and you saw that with the riots, which almost were perfectly timed for us, wasn't they, to highlight the need to develop that area. So, I'm not so sure. The hotel has now been taken out of the plan, hasn't there? There's not going to be a hotel there. But the rest of the plans look excellent, don't they, to bring people through to the area. I think there's so many businesses in the area that are totally dependent on Tottenham being there. So many shops, so many bars and things like that. So anything that brings people to Tottenham has got to obviously help the local area. Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be fantastic, isn't it? 61,000, John. Is this the sign we were looking for to take Spurs that step above that lot down the road, do you think, or are we getting too carried away with ourselves?
Well, I just think forget about that lot for a minute. For the future of our club, it was imperative, in my opinion. Yeah. to sustain, even to, it's bigger clubs in terms of stadium size than us have gone down and stayed down. You know what I mean? Clubs like Leeds and Sheffield Wednesday, and you think, that's really the next natural step. We've done everything we can. We're probably punching above our weight if you look purely at the size of the stadium. In terms of revenue and being in the black, it's a well-run club. The training centre is obviously, amazing. So I just think that it was the natural next thing to do, and it was just important for me to maintain that N17 postcode because, all sorts could have happened, couldn't it? It could have ended up being Stratford Hotspur and all the rest of it, and it was just important to me that the club stayed where it belongs. But I'm interested to see what they do with the transport links, because it's knackered as it is for 36,000. So God knows what it's going to be like with 61.
Yeah, well, as I say, mate, I was sort of watching with one eye open via a matchstick. It was that sort of affair. There were times when it was tedious at best, but there was some really interesting stuff in there in terms of the transport that you mentioned there. They're going to try and make more of a transport link at Tottenham Hale, so they're going to try and filter people through Tottenham Hale rather than Seven Sisters. They're going to, obviously there's the White Hart Lane link that's going to be improved. So there was some really interesting stuff that came out of that. There was the energy, believe it or not, people there speaking about the energy use of the new stadium, the fact that there's no solar panels, etc. on the new stadium. All of that came into it. But in the end, of course, Spurs were given the planning permission. I think that in terms of the local area, I mean, speaking as a local, lives just down the road. I know Ricky doesn't live far also. It's huge. I mean, I've lived in North London all my life. It's the change just since I've been living here has been immense. I mean, it's really, really needs development. You look at areas like Stratford, etc. There's these South London. You've got the hubs that sort of grow up out of nowhere, haven't you? These new developments, and I do get the concerns that were raised by the people who sort of describe it as cleansing of an area. I do get that, but also I think you've got to come to a point where you just say, look, we need to do something with this area, because otherwise, I mean, if Spurs were to move out of that area, guys, that's sad to say, but that's the end of Tottenham, isn't it? I mean, you don't get people going on holiday to Tottenham, do you?
Well, you wouldn't go there on a non-match day, would
absolutely you? And that's my point to the people who object to it. And one thing I do agree with, there was quite a few objectors who said there's no affordable housing in the plans for the new stadium. I think the Gooners put in 50% affordable housing in their plans, and we're obviously building houses, apartments, and it's 0% affordable housing. I think, bearing in mind they're building in Tottenham, I think the club could have done a lot more in that sense. Having said that, any development is crucial in Tottenham at the moment. You've just got to do something, because anyone who goes there on a match day, anyone who lives around that area knows how deprived the area of Tottenham is. It's crucial. So let's hope it does bring about the redevelopment, the regeneration of the area. Let's take this on to Jason. In terms of the 61,000 capacity of the new stadium, which it now looks as if it's going to be, I mean, John's just mentioned there it's more about the redevelopment of the area, the regeneration of the area. Will that alone be enough to take Spurs to the next level, or do you think it's still going to need the likes of Levy and co pumping more money into the club and investing in the playing side?
Well, that alone isn't enough, because you've still got to have the players on the pitch. Obviously, the help of that is that the bigger funds that you bring into the club through additional ticket money and additional merchandising, and the way the club's projected helps fill the club, and you can maybe afford to pay the bigger salaries to players. But it's also dependent, because Chelsea will have a new stadium, Arsenal have got 60,000, Manchester United have got 75,000, Liverpool have got new stadiums planned, Manchester City have just extended theirs, and there is only top 4 places, and don't forget, we could well be in 1 or 2 years' time down to the top 3 places. So you could have 6 teams with these huge stadiums that are competing for 3 places. So just having the stadium on its own isn't enough, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. It's I mean, for me, there was only one decision the council could make. I think it's obviously had to hear the objectors, had to get a fair balance, but I just can't see how the council could afford to refuse a planning permission at this stage, because it was so delicately balanced, wasn't it? It's and the great thing about this is, for me, as opposed to the likes of the West Ham development, is the fact that we're going to own the stadium. Everybody's getting carried away about West Ham and their new stadium. Well, it's not their stadium. They're going to be tenants in there, and I'd hate that to be the case for Spurs, to be tenants in a stadium. As lovely as it is, you could have to leave that stadium at any time theoretically, because it's not yours. And they can put as many claret and blue seats in there as they like. It's still not their stadium. So it's fantastic that Spurs are staying in the area. As you say, it's fantastic that we've got the land. It's fantastic that it's going to be ours. And long may it last. But
sorry, mate, I just want to jump in there.
Go for it.
I don't know if any of you saw this. I know it was a while ago, but when it was confirmed that West Ham would be taking that Olympic Stadium, one of the chairmen, I think it was David Gold, he done a Q&A on Twitter, and a fan, I'm not sure of which club, tweeted him and said, considering the economic climate and the financial, the way the world is, would you suggest selling your house to them rent? And he come back with, no, of course not, that's a silly idea. And then opened himself up to all kinds of nonsense. It was hilarious. Yeah. Obviously it came straight back. Then why are you selling Upton Park to rent the Olympic Stadium then? So yeah, you're bang on there. That's an important part of this whole thing that people seem to, it's all about how nice it looks and how big it is, but that's a massive issue there. Yeah,
of course it is, mate. I know when Wimbledon were tenants at Selhurst Park. What's the difference? You're still playing in somebody else's stadium, and as I say, they can decorate it as much as they like. It's still not theirs. So I think all in all, we've once again got the better end of the deal over our feeder club. So it's great to see, lads. We've got to move on to the next topic tonight, which is of course the talking point feature. Don't forget, last week, guys, we started the new e-Spurs talking point. Every week there'll be a topic of debate put out on the social media for you guys listening to get in touch with us, get involved with the show. Use the hashtag e-Spurs, or one word, TP, e-Spurs talking point, to leave your responses on Twitter or Facebook, and we'll read them out on the following week's show with the talking point, which we've obviously got the lads on the show involved in tonight. Last week's talking point, we asked you guys out there to give us your responses, give us your opinion. We asked, was there a Spurs player in the last 25 years loved more than Harry Kane? So obviously it got the juices flowing from you guys out there, got your thinking caps on. John, you've got some of the responses for us, mate.
Yeah, first one is Tubby Pirlo at Tubbsman, Sir Ledley King, fair enough. Jason Bourne at My Old Man said, Gaza, you know why. Andrew Harker at Andrew_Harker, definitely Ledley. If Harry stays his whole career, then we can talk. Hashtag Coys. That's another fair point. Spurs for life at Lou Jane 1882. Ledley for the same reason we love Harry. And good mate of mine, Ollie Wadhams at Ollie THFC. Follow Spurs over land and sea. How you doing, Ollie?
Good man.
Ledley, Gaza, Klinsmann, Van der Vaart, Bale, Ginola all had that special feeling. But Kane, along with King, are one of our own. Yes. See, I did think Ledley King would come out on top, and it seems he has, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. And I mean, it's a great point there that he makes. That, I mean, he's mentioned some fantastic players there, but is it the fact that Kane and King are Spurs, the fact that they came through the ranks, does that make them, do you think?
I think it does, yeah. And I think also the one thing that those two players have got very much in common is that they were, kind of replacing players that needed replacing, if you know what I mean. Yeah. Ledley King came in and replaced the player that left in acrimonious circumstances. So we were looking for a new captain, and
the one that Bobby Zamora gave a nervous breakdown to, is that?
Yeah, that's
all right. That bloke, yeah. Okay.
I think when Ledley came in, that's what we were after, a new captain and a new player, especially in that position. But I think the one thing with Ledley is he didn't come in and set the world alight straight away. I remember his debut. He came on at half-time at Anfield. We were 2-0 up. We lost 3-2. But then he did come into a team which wasn't great, shall we say. And I think, again, with Kane, we let some real top players go that we loved, like Defoe, and Keane was there during the same time, and, players like that. And we brought in strikers after that didn't really fire, players like Soldado. So we needed some sort of divine intervention from somewhere, really, and Harry Kane came in, didn't he? Hit the ground running, and he's been brilliant ever since. And I think that's probably why those two stick out.
Jace, does that make it so much more important, do you think, that there's players coming through that fans can connect with more?
I think, yeah, without a doubt, that the fact that at the moment you're seeing, I think, a much better connection between the fans and the team because of the local boys coming through. But the one thing you've got to make sure with any local boys coming through, and we do have to be a little bit careful with it, is they've got to be the right quality that comes through. You can't just play them for the sake of it. And my one, without trying to be too negative about it, there's so much concentration now on youth that you sometimes feel that Pochettino is almost having to look at the youth team first, or those players. And if Cameron Carter-Vickers comes through, it's got to be because he's good enough to come through. And if they decide that a player like Velkovic isn't good enough, then you do have to draw the line and say, okay, let them go. And maybe Townsend in a way is the first one that will test that thing to say, do we keep him or not? Because suddenly if he goes, you think, right, there is one that we've developed and there's a Spurs boy in him without a doubt, but we suddenly realise, no, he's not good enough. And the other thing, obviously, that will happen is that if you do start to get into the top four and you do start to push on and try and become a title-winning side, then the quality of player that comes from the youth team has to be even better than it does to be a top six side. And that's always then the problem, that to try and keep developing them good enough.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because I was just thinking there as Jason was talking, you've got obviously Ledley King, the fans adore. But when we signed, for example, Rick, the likes of Klinsmann, you saw that because it was such a huge signing at the time, you saw that adoration, didn't you? I mean, there's film on YouTube of his car being chased down the road. There's a difference, isn't there, in terms of adulation and long-term affection? I
do have to agree, yeah. I think even going back as far as Ricky Villa and Ozzy Ardiles, not that I was born at the time to see it, but when I look back now and you just see all the ticker tape, and even though I think we lost that game 5-1 to Villa, there was still that kind of madness and hysteria, the fact that we signed these two Argentinian lads. I just think Spurs fans love a big signing. I just do think we love a big signing, but to not take away from the talking point, I think arguably you have to say Ledley King's maybe just shaded the question in general. Harry has got the world at his oyster in terms of Spurs. There's no reason why he needs to look to go anywhere else. I believe that the team Spurs are building, he can achieve everything he wants to with Spurs. We've got a great manager, and I keep saying it, the most important thing for Spurs is that we keep hold of Pochettino and we build a team around what he wants. And like the lads have touched on again there in terms of the academy, it's very important that the players that we're bringing in are good enough to play on the pitch in terms of where we want to be. We've been quite lucky that with Kane, we unearthed a player that we didn't really ever know we had, and that only came due to the fact that, we put Soldado on the bench, gave Kane a run, and look what we came out with. So, listen, Kane for me, he's still very, very young. He can still go a long, long way. And what I love about Harry Kane, just to wrap this up for me, is that he's not a scorer of one type of goal. He can score any kind of goal, and that's what makes him such a great player. And I just hope he's a player that we can hold on to.
It's fantastic. I can remember Kane coming on as a sub, I think, a couple of seasons ago, and just remember thinking, oh, God, it's Kane. That's what we're resorting to. And now to see him, it's just unbelievable. The guy is, absolutely can do no wrong in my books. And he's earned it, hasn't he? He's not just, got lucky. He's earned the praise because he's put in the shift. He loves Spurs. There's no doubt about that. You can see his reaction in big games when Spurs win, and it's fantastic to see. And long may it continue. And let's hope he. And the thing that for me is even better than all of that is the fact that whenever a talk comes up of a move away for Harry Kane, he always comes back with, I want to build my career here, doesn't he? So that's what makes it even better for me, is the fact that there's some security in that. You're not, as a Spurs fan, you're not sort of hanging on tenterhooks as we usually are. It looks as if he might try and build a legacy with Spurs, which is fantastic. John, you started all of this, mate, so let's finish it on this. If you had a choice between a Ledley King with the longevity, a Spurs player coming through the ranks, and the affection that goes with that, or a huge Klinsmann signing, is only there for a couple of seasons, let's say 2 seasons, but you get them for those 2 seasons. You had a choice. Which would you take?
Oh, blimey, that's a tough one. I think the thing is, we've been let down by so many of these, Carlos Kickerballs, as Alan Sugar once famously said. So I think, as we said, with Harry and Ledley especially, they'll be universally loved for Ledley King will be loved for the rest of his life by every Spurs fan. And I think that, we do love a big signing. I know what you're saying, but ultimately that a lot of the time they're just using us as like a stepping stone, although I hate that term. So, even when we did sign Klinsmann, he was 30, I think, the day after he signed for us in 94. So you knew it weren't ever going to be a long-term thing, although it did make a massive impact. I just think, we've been lucky really in as much as since Ledley King, there hasn't been too many, as there really, that have come in and made much of an impact. But now we've got Harry Kane, who really has, and he sort of seems to have unlocked the door for another wave of young players. And I think that in terms of adulation or admiration, I think I'd rather have a kid come through who loves playing for Spurs. We all want to see the players playing like a fan would play, with that heart and that passion. So for that reason, I think I'm going to go with a Ledley, Harry type homegrown player all day long. If we had 11 of them, I'm sure we'd get further than we would if we were signing players like Modric, who was a great footballer, obviously, but he clearly didn't want to be at Tottenham for too long and probably stayed a year longer than he wanted to. So I'd say, definitely give me a Ledley or a Harry any day of the week.
So that's your eSpurs talking point for this week. For next week, guys, don't forget to get in touch with us using that hashtag eSpursTP, all one word. And the talking point we want you guys to let us know your views on this week. Jace, you've come up with a really good topic.
Yeah, it was just an interesting point. Over the last 4 or 5 years, of the players that have left the club, which ones would you like to, or which one most would you like to see come back that you still feel could fit into the current team?
Cracking question, and I know on social media over the last few days that we've been sort of debating that a little bit, and there's been some great responses out there already. I know some that Jace might bring back, but we'll wait till next week for that to get everyone's views on. So get your thinking caps on, guys. Use the hashtag eSpursTP. Let us know if you could bring back any Spurs player that we've sold in the last 4 or 5 years. Who would it be and why? We need to know why, also so that we can read them out on the show next week. That's eSpursTP. Lads, we're going to move on to the final subject on tonight's show, which is the best and worst Spurs moments of 2015. Obviously, coming to the close of the year now, we thought we'd have a think. Scratch our heads and think about the best Spurs moment and the worst Spurs moment of 2015. Thankfully, actually, there's a lot more good moments that have been fed back to us than there are bad. So that's a good sign, if anything. First up, let's get the lads' views on this one. Let's go to John, first of all.
Right, best moment. The moment where I was... I'll get goosey thinking about it now. When Harry Kane's header hit the net against Arsenal... 86th minute in February. That was an unbelievable feeling for that young team to come out after being 1-0 down and fight back the way they did. Was just that was an amazing day, and that feeling when the ball hit the net was unbelievable. And I'd say worst. Do you want me to go with my worst now, or do you want
go for it? Yeah, let's have your worst.
The one moment which still winds me up to this day is Soldado's pass to Chadley against Fiorentina away. It just fills me with absolute rage just thinking about it. He's a £26 million striker allegedly, through 1-on-1 with the keeper, no defenders anywhere near, and he passes, and we'll leave that there. I think. Yeah,
we tried to erase that from memory, and it's one of those moments. I was actually on social media at the time, and you still get Spurs fans who, this is how it
scarred me for life.
Well, yeah, and I mean there were Spurs fans on there defending Soldado after that, and I wanted to pull my hair out, but. Oh, bless him. Rick, your best and worst of 2015?
Yeah, I've got a few. I have to say, John kind of stole my thunder. I was going to say the Kane goal. I was there as well. It was just absolute scenes.
And it was the scenes after the game, Rick, I think, that most stand out, isn't it?
It's just crazy. Everyone walking out of Tottenham High Road, just amazing. Just to see that feeling when it went in. I mean, I've sunk 4 rows forward after, admittedly, but it was... amazing feeling. I think the Chelsea 5-3 also deserves a mention. I just think that was a kind of statement that Spurs had kind of arrived under Poch in a certain way, because no one was expecting it. Chelsea had been unbeaten until that moment, and I think that moment plays a significant part of where Chelsea are now, because I don't want. This is not Chelsea TV, or this is not a Chelsea podcast, but that 5-3 defeat against them just showed the early signs of Mourinho cracking, and obviously with the news this week, well, last week, should we say, that he's no longer there. The negative football they played since that result afterwards to kind of see off the league last year, I don't think they ever mentally recovered after that result. But yeah, I'd say the Arsenal Kane header and the Chelsea 5-3 and the worst moments, I find it very hard to let cup defeats go. So the Arsenal League Cup game still really hurts me, not because it's the League Cup, but because we threw it against them. And I still say it now, if we didn't pick Fazio and we picked either Vertonghen or Alderweireld to partner Wimmer, it could so have been a different result. But it's one of those things, isn't it? And I'd also say that the Leicester game last year, also in the Cup, I know John was there as well.
Yeah.
A game where at the time Spurs, we was in the Capital One final. We was also obviously in the Europa League, and we just kind of seemed to throw that FA Cup game because we felt we were going to have a big pile up of fixtures. And you saw Aston Villa go to Wembley last season and get tonked 4-0 by Arsenal. Now I know Spurs could have put a lot more of a better effort in. So those are the two worst moments for that kind of niggle away, that Leicester and Arsenal Cup games that for me on another day, if we kind of put out a stronger squad, you know, who knows where we could have been.
Yeah, they always leave you thinking, don't they? What if with Spurs? It's always so near and yet so far. Albeit, of course, we got to the cup final. But maybe that's one of the worst moments, losing that cup final. Who knows? Jace, your best and worst.
I think, you know, as both the boys said, the Kane header in the North London derby, or the North v South London derby as I call it, was there, and the Kane's the fourth goal against Chelsea when you actually realised, yeah, we've actually done them.
Yeah.
I think at 3-1, even with Townsend's penalty right on half time, which probably when he went to take it, we all thought, oh no, why is he taking it? But when the fourth one went in, you kind of thought, no, we've definitely done this. And then probably the other part for me was seeing Vlad Kirikez leave. That was a definite highlight because, oh my,
your favourite player, wasn't he, Jace?
Oh dear, oh dear. You could almost say there was two moments, wasn't it? Him leaving and him getting sent off at Stoke was a highlight as well. When you thought, well, we'll actually now play better at Stoke with 10 men than we will with Vlad on the pitch. So they were probably there hasn't actually been too many black moments, has there, all season or all year? Probably the lowest one for me was probably having to watch us go up and just pick up runners-up medals in the final rather than pick up the main trophy. But you know, there hasn't been a really low, depressing moment as a Spurs fan too much over the past 12 months. No,
it's we say sort of touching wood. It's at that stage, isn't it, where you're sort of looking forward now rather than looking back. And Chelsea, huge disappointment on the day, wasn't it? Especially losing to that lot, you know. But it's
and a kind of an own goal that kind of clinched it, and you know, for that entire second half, you just thought, no, we're you know, in the exact opposite of Kane's fourth goal against Chelsea when we were 2-0 down. You thought, no, this is just going to ebb away from us, and we're never going to come back into it. So, you know, that second half, as I say, was a disappointment.
Jace, what's the social media saying?
I've got here a comment here: Spurs for life. Lou Jane, 1882. Best was the North London derby at White Hart Lane in February. Worst was Paulinho's miss at Burnley and Stoke's 3-0 defeat. I was at all three matches.
Oh.
And we've got Kev Green at Kev_G1. I'm going very left field with my worst moment here, and that was Gibbs' equaliser at the Emirates. So sickening. The best for me, tough, but it has to be Harry Kane's double and late winner against the scum. Pure elation. Yeah,
it seems a common theme, doesn't it? That Harry Kane goal against Arsenal, that header seems to be the moment of the season. Ricky, you've got a few more for us.
I have indeed, yep. So I've got e-Spurs USA. That's our partners over in the US. e_Spurs_USA. They say best 5-3 Chelsea, our cup run, the rise of Harry Kane, the transformation of Lamela, and of course, the AIA trophy. I think that's a sarcasm.
Not biased at all there, being in the States.
Not biased at all.
I was in Malaysia when we lifted that AIA trophy as well. I think we lifted 3 this season, didn't we? 3 AIA trophies.
I think so.
I think Hugo tried his best to smile. I don't know whether he wanted to smile or kind of or get off the pitch, but he tried. We've finally got Big Spurs Chris at Big Spurs Chris, who says best moments: home league win v Chelsea and Arsenal, and also Eriksen's goal v Sheffield United away. That was a great finish, yep. To be fair. Worst moments, I think, as the Capital One Cup v Arsenal, and the knockout from the Europa League last year. I think that was against Fiorentina. I think again those cup games last year, you look at it and think we could have gone further, in them if only we just kind of fielded more of a stronger team. But I think that cup final last year did play a significant part in our elimination from the rest of the tournaments, which is such a shame, really.
Yeah, we've spoken about it, haven't we, mate? The fact that Pochettino was stuck between a rock and a hard place. A nightmare decision to make. Do you, what side you put out in each competition? And I guess in looking at things in hindsight, he probably did the right thing playing the stronger team in the cup final. Having said that, for people like myself and the rest of you lads who love the Europa or the UEFA Cup as it was, and how important that is to Spurs, to see us go out in that way was so disappointing. And we've spoken, haven't we, about how nice it would be for Spurs to go on a run in that competition this year.
I think the thing is as well, I mean, a lot of people do say Spurs, they all, back down the years, they said Spurs are a cup side, and we haven't really done well. I mean, the FA Cup, well, I know we spoke about it last week, but touching on it again, there's such a real chance now. I mean, you see the teams that always kind of get to the last 8, 12 of the competition, you think, why shouldn't we be there? I just really hope this season we do go and reinforce our position in the cups.
Yeah, absolutely. 24 years, far too long, isn't it? Far too long. Listen, lads, we've come to the end of another show. Only one more show to go in 2015. As always, I want to say thanks to everybody listening out there. If you're a first-time listener, welcome along. Don't forget, guys, get in touch with the show. If you agree, disagree with anything you've heard on the show tonight, let us know. All of the Twitter accounts of the guys you've been listening to tonight will be on the e-Spurs Twitter account, which is at @e_Spurs when the show goes live. So get in touch with the guys, let them know what you think of the show tonight. Keep it clean if you can, and get involved with e-Spurs. We'll be back next week for our last show of the year after the Norwich game, when of course we'll be talking all things Norwich, and we'll be having a bit more of a detailed look back at everything that's happened in 2015. I hope you've enjoyed the show tonight, guys. My thanks to Jason, John and Ricky as always, and as we always say, guys, come on you Spurs.